Myra had always dreamed of the stars. As a child, she would sit outside on the roof of her family's small home, looking up at the endless sky, tracing the shapes of constellations with her finger, and wondering what kind of lives waited beyond the world she knew. She was young, barely into adulthood, but already chosen for something extraordinary. Humanity had been invited to join the Great Federation of Alien Civilizations, and Myra was one of the few selected to travel as part of a diplomatic mission. It was not because she was powerful or important. She was not a commander, not a scientist, not a leader. She was chosen for her heart, for her open way of seeing the universe. Her teachers had noticed long ago that Myra spoke with honesty and listened with care. When the council asked for someone who could represent the softer side of humanity's hope, its curiosity, its ability to feel her name, was placed forward. The great starship that carried her was unlike anything she had ever seen. Long silver. Wings stretched across the void, glowing softly with energy. Inside, the walls pulsed with light as if the ship itself was alive. The crew was a mix of humans and aliens, and Myra often felt small among them. She would walk through the halls, watching tall, insect-like diplomats speaking in clicks and hums, or scaled traders adjusting their cloaks as they carried data crystals, or floating beings made of mist and light. She did not yet know how to stand among them without fear, but she carried a journal in her hand, writing down every sight, every detail, so she could remember and share. She wrote of the stars flowing like rivers outside the windows of the strange, songs the aliens sang, of the smell of spices that lingered in the dining hall. To her, every moment was a story waiting to be told. It was during one of these quiet evenings, while the ship drifted near a giant ringed planet, that she met him. His name was Orrin. He was not human. His people were tall and slender, their skin pale like carved stone, their eyes deep and dark as wells of memory. His hair was silver, flowing down to his shoulders, though he was not old in a way humans measured. His kind lived centuries, and Orrin had already seen more years than Myra could imagine. He was a historian, a keeper of knowledge, traveling with the mission to record the meeting between humans and the Federation. While others came with politics and demands, Orrin came with curiosity and care. He spent most of his time in the great library chamber, where light glowed from crystal shelves holding centuries of records. Myra found herself drawn there too. She did not know why. Perhaps it was the silence, or the way the air felt thick with stories. Perhaps it was something else, something she could not yet name. She stepped quietly into the chamber one evening, clutching her journal. Orrin stood by a crystal tablet, reading lines of history that shifted across the glowing surface. His presence was calm, almost heavy with patience. Like a tree that had stood through countless seasons. "You are one of the humans," he said without turning. His voice was deep but gentle, carrying the weight of time. "Yes," Myra answered softly. "I am Myra." Looked at her then, his dark eyes settling on her face. She felt small under that gaze, as though he could see not only her face, but the dreams and fears hidden within. Yet there was no judgment in his look, only quiet interest. "You carry a book," Orrin said, pointing to her journal. Myra held it up, shy but proud. "It is my way of remembering. I write what I see. I do not want to forget." Orrin's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "Then you are a keeper of memory like me." She blinked. "But I am not a historian. I just write because it makes me happy." "History is not only for the scholars," Orrin replied. "It is made from simple voices, from the eyes of those who live the moment. Your words may one day be as precious as any record in this library." The thought filled Myra with warmth. She sat across from him, opening her journal. For a long time they spoke in the quiet glow of the library. She told him of Earth's the sound of rain on rooftops, the taste of fresh bread, the laughter of children running in the fields. He listened with care, his eyes softening as if her words painted colors he had never known. In return, Orrin told her of his people. They lived in great stone cities built on cliffs, where waterfalls sang in endless chorus. They measured life, not in years, but in cycles of stars, and they believed every soul carried the weight of stories from one life to the next. His voice was slow, steady, each word carrying the feeling of someone who had lived long enough to find peace with time. Mira was fascinated. She asked questions eagerly, leaning forward with wide eyes. Orrin answered with patience, never tiring of her curiosity. In her, he saw something he had not felt in centuries' youth: wonder. The fire of discovery unclouded by doubt. As days passed, Mira returned again and again to the library. She would find Orrin waiting as though he knew she would come. Sometimes they read in silence, sometimes they spoke for hours. Mira found herself laughing at his dry humor, surprising even him. Orrin, who had lived long among scholars and diplomats, now looked forward to the voice of one young human who carried more sincerity in her words than all the speeches of leaders. Others on the ship noticed. Some whispered that the human girl spent too much time with the elder historian. Some thought it strange, even improper, but neither Mira nor Orrin cared. In the library, there were no titles, no ranks, only two souls sharing the wonder of the universe. One evening, as they studied the map of the Federation's worlds, Mira spoke softly. "Do you think they will accept us? Do you think humans belong among them?" Orrin watched her for a long moment before answering. "Belonging is not given. It is shown. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you dream, these are not weaknesses. They are strengths. When I see what your people may give to the stars." Mira felt her heart stir at his words. To her, Orrin was more than a teacher. He was a mirror, showing her the value she had not seen in herself. The journey continued. But Mira's nights were no longer lonely. With Orrin, she discovered not only the wonders of alien worlds, but also the quiet power of connection. A bond she could not yet name, fragile but growing, like the first light of dawn across a dark horizon. For the first time since leaving Earth, Mira felt at home not in a place, but in the presence of someone who understood. The great ship sailed through the stars, carrying the delegation toward the heart of the Federation. Days stretched into weeks, and Mira began to feel the weight of the mission. At first, she had thought her role was small, but slowly she realized that every action she took, every word she spoke, was being watched. Too many aliens, she was the face of humanity. Whenever she walked the halls, she felt their eyes on her. Some looked with curiosity, others with suspicion. Humans were young compared to most civilizations. They had only recently reached the stars, and their history was full of mistakes. Many leaders wondered if such a young race could be trusted with a place among the Great Alliance. Mira tried not to let the pressure break her spirit. She kept her journal close, writing down her thoughts as if the paper could hold her worries. But there were nights when she sat in her small cabin, staring out at the endless dark, and wondered if she truly belonged. It was Orrin who gave her strength. The older historian had become her constant companion. Each evening they met in the glowing library chamber, where crystal shelves rose like trees of light. Their time seemed to slow. Mira would speak of Earth, painting pictures with her words, the warm smell of soil after rain, the sound of waves crashing on rocky shores, the glow of fireflies in summer nights. Orrin listened with his calm, steady eyes, as if each detail was a jewel to be treasured. In return, he told her of his people. His voice was rich with memory. He spoke of walking through ancient stone halls where torches burned for centuries without fading. He described the way his people gathered under waterfalls to sing, their voices echoing against cliffs until the sound became a living storm. He told her how his kind measured love, not in days or years, but in lifetimes. Believing that souls met again and again across the cycles of the stars, Mira listened with wide eyes, her heart racing at the beauty of it. To her, Orrin's words were more than stories. They were windows into a soul shaped by centuries of living. She admired his patience, his wisdom, and the way he never dismissed her questions, no matter how simple they seemed. One evening, while they studied the history of the Federation, Mira asked, "Why do so many doubt us? Why do they think humans are too young to stand among them?" Orrin's gaze rested on her. "Because youth can be reckless. Your people move quickly, sometimes without thought. The older races fear that speed. They fear what they cannot predict." Mira lowered her eyes, thinking of wars on Earth, of mistakes humanity had made. Maybe they are right, she whispered, but Orrin shook his head. No, they see only danger, not the gift. Youth brings courage. It brings hope when others grow weary. It brings the fire that awakens old hearts. I see this in you, Myra. That is why I believe in your kind. Her chest warmed at his words, and she smiled shyly. I don't feel brave. I only feel small. Even the smallest flame can light a hall of shadows, Orrin replied. Their conversations grew deeper, and so did their silence. Sometimes they sat without speaking, their presence alone enough. Mira felt something stirring inside her, something she had no name for. It was not the simple friendship she had known before. It was softer, more delicate, yet stronger than anything she had carried. Orrin, with all his years, his calm, his wisdom, was becoming a center in her world. But outside the library, the journey grew tense. The ship stopped at Federation outposts, where alien leaders gathered to discuss humanity's petition for membership. In long meetings, Mira sat at the side of human diplomats, listening as older races questioned her people's worth. Humans are too quick to fight. One insectoid elder clicked. They consume resources without care, said a scaled envoy. They burn too bright and too fast. How can such a race be trusted with peace? Asked another voice. Mira wanted to shout, to defend her people, but she held her tongue. She was not trained in politics. Yet sometimes, when the debates ended and the halls emptied, she found leaders lingering nearby, curious about her. They would ask questions about Earth's skies, about human songs, about the way humans cared for their young. And Mira would answer simply, honestly, with no grand speech. Only the truth of her heart. Her words spread further than she knew. Whispers grew that the young human girl spoke with more sincerity than any diplomat. Some mocked her innocence, but others began to wonder if perhaps that was humanity's strength. Not cunning, not power, but the ability to feel deeply and share it without fear. Orrin noticed the change as well. One evening, he said, "Do you see what you are doing, Myra? You are showing them not through argument, but through being yourself. That is a gift no council could plan." She blushed, lowering her eyes. "I don't know how, I just speak, and that is enough," Orrin said gently. Their bond deepened. Mira began to sense that Orrin carried burdens of his own. Sometimes, when he thought she was not watching, his gaze would drift far away, as if chasing memories too heavy to hold. She wondered what it was like to live so many years, to carry so much. One night she asked, "Doesn't it hurt, remembering so much? Doesn't the weight of time make you lonely?" For the first time, she saw his calm mask tremble. His voice was quiet when he answered, "Yes, it does." She reached out without thinking, laying her hand on his. His skin was cool, his fingers long and strong. For a moment, he did not move. Then he looked at her. And in his dark eyes, she saw a flicker of something she had never seen before: gratitude, and something gentler still. The silence between them was not empty. It was full, like a river carrying unspoken words. From then on, Mira noticed subtle changes. When she entered the library, Orrin would already have set aside texts he thought she might enjoy. When they walked through the ship's halls, others made way, sensing the quiet strength between them. Though many did not understand, no one dared break the thread that tied them, but their closeness did not go unnoticed by the diplomats. Some humans whispered that Mira was too close to the alien historian. Some aliens muttered that Orrin risked his dignity by spending so much time with a girl so young. Yet neither of them cared. Their bond was not bound by age or race. It was something larger, an exchange of spirit, surrender of fear to trust. One evening, Mira asked him, "Why do you spend time with me? You have lived so long, seen so much. I am just a young girl who knows so little." Orrin studied her carefully, as though weighing his answer. At last he said, "Because in you I see what I have lost. You remind me of wonder. You remind me that even after centuries, there are still new stars to see." Her heart beat faster at his words. She turned her eyes away, afraid he would see too much in them. Yet inside, she felt a quiet joy, as though something hidden within her was finally being seen. The journey was far from over. The Federation still doubted. Tensions grew with rival powers. But amid the uncertainty, Mira and Orin's bond stood like a flame in the dark. Fragile, yet unshaken. And though neither spoke it aloud, both began to feel what their hearts already knew, that in a universe vast and cold, they had found in each other a warmth worth surrendering to. The starship drifted into the heart of the Federation, where the Grand Council gathered. It was here that the fate of humanity would be decided. The chamber of assembly was vast, like a sphere of light where hundreds of alien envoys floated, walked, or stood in their own sections. Their voices filled the hall like waves, layered and endless. Myra sat among the human delegates, her heart heavy. She had grown used to the whispers, to the stares of doubt, but this was different. Here, every race had gathered. Every word spoken would shape the judgment of humanity. The council began with voices that rose sharp and cutting. The insectoid elders declared that humans could not be trusted. The scaled envoys repeated that Earth was unstable, always shifting from peace to war. A being of mist swirled and spoke of humanity's short lifespan, saying, "How can those who live so little see the wisdom of eternity?" The human diplomats tried to answer with reason, with promises, with speeches of progress, but their words seemed to fall into the void. Myra sat silent, feeling smaller than ever. She wrote in her journal, though her hands shook. That night, in the quiet of the library, Orin found her staring at the blank page. "They will never accept us," she whispered. Orin walked closer, his presence calm as always. "Do not let their words turn your spirit cold. Remember what I told you. Belonging is not given, it is shown." Mira looked up, her eyes shimmering with frustration. "How do I show them? I am not a leader. I cannot change their minds." But Orin shook his head. "Sometimes the smallest voice reaches where the loudest cannot. Speak when it is time, Mira. Speak with your heart, and they will hear." She wanted to believe him, but doubt still weighed heavy. Yet his steady gaze gave her strength, and for that night she let herself rest. Days passed, and the council meetings grew harsher. Then, one morning, disaster struck. A message arrived from the border systems. A rival power, long hostile to the Federation, had moved ships into contested space. It was the same power that had once clashed with human explorers. And now suspicion rose like fire through the council chamber. "They are connected," shouted one envoy. "The humans have brought war to our doors," another declared. "Perhaps they are spies, inviting enemies into our realm," accused a third. The words spread like poison. Humanity was no longer only doubted, they were blamed. Mira sat frozen, her chest tight. Around her, the human diplomats shouted their innocence, but the noise was drowned by the storm of voices. For the first time since their arrival, she felt true fear not for herself, but for her people. What if this was the end? What if humanity was cast out before they ever had a chance to belong? When she escaped the chamber, her steps carried her straight to Orin. He stood waiting in the library, as though he had known she would come. "They blame us," she said breathlessly. "They will push us away. Everything we hoped for is falling apart." Orin's face was grave. "This is a test of more than politics. The council fears, and fear makes them blind. But you must not let fear claim you as well." Her eyes filled with tears. "But what can I do?" He reached for her journal, placing his hand gently over it. "This is what you can do. You hold the voice of humanity here, not in arguments of power, but in truth. They have heard speeches. They have not yet heard you." Mira stared at him, stunned. Could she stand before the council? Could she let her small voice rise above centuries of doubt? Her heart trembled, but in Orin's gaze she saw no doubt, only trust. "Why do you believe in me so much?" she whispered. Orin's answer was quiet, almost tender. "Because you remind me of what the stars truly mean. Wonder, hope, renewal. You are what your people can give the galaxy. That is why I believe." Her chest warmed with courage. She did not yet know what she would say, but she knew she could no longer stay silent. The following day, the council gathered again. The chamber rang with anger, with fear of war. The human delegation sat in silence, their words drowned. It was then that Mira stood. Her legs shook, but her voice rose clear. "Please," she said, her voice carrying farther than she expected. The chamber stilled, hundreds of alien eyes turning toward her. Her heart raced, but she held her ground. "I know I am not a leader," she began. "I know I am young. But I am a human. I carry in me what my people are. And I ask you to listen not to promises, not to politics, but to truth." She lifted her journal, opening its pages. Her hands trembled, but her voice grew steady as she read. She spoke of Earth not, of its wars, but of its beauty. She described the way rain fell soft on fields, the way children laughed by rivers, the way families held one another through storms. She told of mistakes, yes, but also of the way humans rose again after falling, of the way they never gave up hope. "We are young," she said, her eyes sweeping the hall, "but that does not mean we have nothing to give. Youth brings mistakes, yes, but it also brings courage. We dare to dream when others grow weary. We dare to love even when life is short. We are not perfect, but we are trying. And that trying is what makes us human." Her words hung in the silence, fragile yet strong. She closed her journal and pressed it to her heart. "If you doubt us, then doubt me. But know this, Sci, stand here because I believe that even the smallest flame can bring light, and I will not let that flame die." For a moment, Mira thought no one had heard. But then whispers began to spread. Some voices still doubted, but others softened, uncertain. Touched by the sincerity they had never seen in long speeches, Orrin watched from his place among the historians, his eyes steady on her. In that moment, he knew she had given the council something no human diplomat could have. Glimpse of humanity's soul, but the crisis was not yet over. The rival power moved closer, their fleets pressing at the border. The council debated war. Fear once more threatened to tear apart the fragile trust Mira had begun to build. Mira felt the weight of it pressing down, but she was not alone. Each night she met with Orrin, and together they spoke of paths forward. He guided her, but never took away her voice. Slowly, she began to realize that their bond was not only personal, it was part of something larger. Through him, she had found courage. Through her, he had found wonder again. One evening as the stars drifted outside the windows, Myra turned to him. "If war begins, what will happen?" Orrin's gaze was somber. "Worlds will burn. Peace will fade. And many will say humanity was the cause." Her heart sank. "Then all of this, everything we've tried it, will be lost." But Orrin reached out, brushing his hand lightly against hers. "Not lost. Because even in the darkest night, a single flame can guide the way. You are that flame, Mira. Do not let it go out." The touch lingered. And though neither spoke the word, both felt it. Affection. Connection. Something deeper than friendship. Something more enduring than the doubts of others. It was not bound by age or by race. It was born of spirit, of soul. The days ahead promised storms. The Federation trembled on the edge of conflict, and humanity stood in danger of being cast aside. Yet Mira no longer felt alone. She had found in Orrin a soul who believed in her, and she carried in herself the courage of a people who refused to surrender. And though the path was uncertain, she knew this, in a galaxy vast and cold, the bond between a young girl and an older soul might yet hold the power to change everything. The great chamber of the Federation shone like a sphere of living light. Mira's heart raced as she stepped into its center. The rival fleets were still positioned at the border, their presence a silent threat, but the Council's attention had returned to her. This was the moment when words alone could shape the destiny of her people. Orrin stood nearby, at his calm presence a steady anchor against the storm of doubt that surrounded her. She glanced at him, drawing courage from his silent support. Over the past weeks, their bond had grown in ways neither of them could fully name. It was not only friendship or mentorship, it was trust, understanding, and a gentle kind of devotion that had been forged through shared fear, hope, In long conversations beneath the glow of the library's crystals, Mira took a deep breath. She could feel the eyes of hundreds of beings upon her, some curious, some skeptical, some filled with outright mistrust. Yet she did not falter. She remembered Orin's words. Even the smallest flame can guide the way. I speak not as a diplomat, Mira began, her voice carrying steadily across the hall. I speak as a human. I speak from the heart of my people and from my own heart. I know we are young. I know we are flawed. But that does not mean we are unworthy. The chamber fell silent. Even those who had doubted the humans leaned closer, drawn by the sincerity in her tone. Mira opened her journal, the pages worn from weeks of travel and reflection. She began to speak of humanity's resilience, its courage, and its hope. She did not boast of weapons or power. She spoke instead of the way humans care for each other, the way they build communities, the way they learn from failure and rise again. We have stumbled, she said, but we have never given up. We have faced storms we could not control, and yet we have continued to dream, to explore, to help one another. That is what it means to be human. She described the simplest of things, stories shared by firelight, hands held in comfort, laughter echoing through homes and fields. Yet her words carried the weight of conviction. The council had seen speeches before, but never the soul of a race laid bare in such simplicity. Orin watched from his place, his eyes never leaving hers. Pride and admiration mingled with something gentler, something almost tender. He had seen lifetimes of history, of battles, of words spoken to sway hearts. Yet Mira's voice reached farther than any speech he had ever heard. The galaxy may doubt us, Mira continued, but it is not through weapons, nor through fear that we will earn our place. It is through hope, through care, through courage, even when the world tells us we are too small, too young, too fragile. That is the gift of humanity. That is the gift we bring to the stars. A low murmur spread across the chamber. Eyes softened. Some who had spoken in scorn now looked uncertain. Even the rival powers at the border paused, as if hearing for the first time the truth behind human resolve. Mira's words were not just rhetoric. They were real, honest, and heartfelt. She could feel her own courage growing as she spoke. She glanced at Orin, and in that moment, their connection shone brighter than the lights of the chamber. She realized that this bond, this trust, was itself proof of humanity's worth. If she and Orin, so different, separated by species, by age, by countless lifetimes of experience, could meet and understand each other, then perhaps all beings could. After hours of discussion, debate, and uncertainty, a decision was reached. The council recognized humanity's sincerity and potential. They granted the young species a chance not because of their power, but because of their spirit. The rival fleets, seeing the humans' courage and the unity it inspired, withdrew to monitor peacefully rather than attack. Mira's heart soared. She had not only saved her people from rejection, but she had shown the galaxy that humanity's strength lay not in force, but in character. Amid the celebration that followed, Mira found Orin waiting. The halls had emptied, leaving only the two of them in the quiet glow of the ship's observation deck. Outside, stars stretched endlessly, a reminder of the vastness of the universe they both loved. "You did it," Orin said softly, his voice filled with pride. Mira shook her head, a smile lifting her tired features. "We did it. Humanity did it." He studied her for a long moment. "And yet, I cannot help but feel that you did more than any council could measure. You have reminded us all of the simplest truth, that courage and care are stronger than fear and suspicion." Her heart fluttered at his words, and for a moment she simply looked at him, words unnecessary. The connection between them was palpable, stronger now after weeks of shared struggle. It was not something that could be explained by age or by species. It was something deeper, something essential. "You were there for me," she said finally, her voice soft. "Even when I doubted myself, you believed in me." "I always will," Orin replied. His hand brushed hers lightly, a gesture that carried more meaning than any words could hold. "Because in your courage, I have found hope. Because in your heart, I have found something I thought I had lost." Mira felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized then that her feelings were no longer simple admiration or gratitude. They were stronger, deeper, and entirely human in their clarity. And Oryn, though older, wiser, and shaped by lifetimes, was not untouched either. His quiet presence had become a home, a safe harbor in the chaos of stars in the days that followed. Humanity began its new role among the Federation. The young species quickly proved their worth through acts of empathy and bravery. They helped rebuild outposts damaged by storms, mediated disputes between rival races, and shared their stories and knowledge freely. Other species began to see the truth Myra had spoken: the human gift was not power, but heart. Myra and Oryn's bond became known as well. While some whispered about their closeness, most saw it for what it was: a living example of the Federation's ideals. Two beings from different worlds, different ages, and different experiences could come together and create understanding. Their friendship, respect, and quiet affection inspired others to look beyond differences and value the essence of each being. One evening, Myra stood on the observation deck, watching the light of distant suns ripple across the void. Oryn came beside her, his hand brushing against hers. "Do you remember the first day we met?" Myra asked, a small smile touching her lips. "I do," Oryn replied. "You were so young, so full of questions, and I thought, perhaps you would tire quickly of me." She laughed softly. "I was the one who never tired of you." He turned to her, his dark eyes reflecting starlight. "And yet, I think we have both found something rare. Something worth holding on to. Not just friendship, not just guidance, but a connection that transcends worlds." Myra felt her heart leap. She knew what he meant, and she felt the same. "I never expected this," she admitted. "I never thought I would feel so close to someone like you." "Perhaps that is the gift of the stars," Oryn said gently. "They bring together those who need each other most in ways we cannot predict." She smiled, her hand finding his. "Then we will go forward together, no matter what comes." "Yes," he said, and the word carried the weight of lifetimes, of trust, and of shared hope. Time passed, and the story of Myra and Oryn spread across the Federation. Humans were no longer doubted. They were valued for their courage, their honesty, and their empathy. Other species sought their counsel not for their power, but for the clarity of heart they brought to every challenge. Myra continued to write, her journal now filled with stories of triumph, friendship, and the beauty of connection. Oryn remained by her side, not as a mentor, but as a partner in spirit, a companion who had seen the vastness of time and chose willingly to share his path with a young human girl whose heart had never stopped believing. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown worlds and challenges yet to come. But Myra and Oryn faced it together, their bond a testament to the power of understanding, courage, and love that did not need grand gestures or declarations. It was quiet, steady, and infinitely strong, the sweet surrender of two souls, meeting across time and space and finding in each other a home. And as they looked out at the endless stars, Myra knew this truth with certainty. Humanity had a place among the cosmos, not because it conquered, but because it cared. And in her heart, and in Oryn's, a new story was just beginning, one of hope, of unity, and of the gentle, enduring power of connection.